Those of you who are on the Sanctus newsletter list know that I should be in California right now today, but instead I'm filming this in Munich, where I live, because the part of California I was going to got hit by torrential rain, is kind of flooded, and so they canceled all of my events there, and I flew back home. Here I am. It is also a week before Lent starts, according to the Western calendar. It starts this year on February 14th, 2024. And for Lent, I don't know about you, but I always try to check myself, try to find something that I might be overly dependent on, and kind of go without it for the 40 odd days that we have there. And that's because I'm trying to find a new kind of freedom. I'm trying to sort of live in control of my life, and I just don't want there to be things that kind of have their hooks in me and keep me doing what they want rather than what I want. And one of the things that I have constantly or repeatedly tried to find ways to give up was my dependence on digital, online, kind of technology kinds of things. And I'm going to do that again this year. And I want to invite you into that space with me, invite you into a kind of digital cloister with me. Now, as you'll see from the title of the video, I have not used a smartphone in 17 years. I've never owned one since they were first launched to the world in 2007. I didn't have a BlackBerry or whatever came before that. I just never, ever bought one. I did have a mobile phone, a cell phone for, I don't know, many years, and then I lost it in Croatia, and since then I've not really had one. I do have one because I need to do that sort of two-factor authentication sometimes, and sometimes when I travel I need to be able to meet up with somebody, and so I need to have just a basic little phone, but it usually stays in the drawer here, off and without battery, and so I don't ever use it. But I want to, this Lent, invite you into that sort of space that I live in, and I'm going to enter it even more. For me this year, I am going to try to not look at any emails, any notifications, or whatever until 1 p.m., so about lunchtime for me, and I'm not going to look at any kind of news program, news website of any sort until 6 p.m. And I just want to check my sort of dependencies on needing to always go and see if there's something new there for me, a new email or some sort of obscure news event that I can't do anything about, that's happened somewhere in the world during the time that I, God forbid, wasn't looking at the news. That's what I'm going to do. But I would like to invite you into a space of, like me, living without a smartphone. And I want to explain why. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike. And we have been attempting a few things in the past years here with Sanctus. We have been attempting some pop-up monasticism. Now, we ran a retreat a few months back in which we took away people's smartphones for the length of the retreat, and that was actually kind of difficult, and it was interesting, some of the hurdles we ran into and the excuses that kind of came up about, like, oh, maybe I do need this and all that. But we just like to try these sorts of things, pop-up monasticism, attempt different things, and that's what I want to invite you into here for Lent, so now until Easter, to give up your smartphone and to get something like this, a dumb phone or whatever you want to call it, and just use that. Don't tell very many people the number, and try to live with that for a time. Go cold turkey. Go cold turkey. I mean, you can do a halfway thing, but it's better if you don't. Now, as for that retreat that I mentioned, there is a trailer that is for a documentary that we did about that retreat. The documentary is called Alone Together. Go check out that trailer. I'm very tempted to put it here, but I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. So, here are the things that I have learned about life in the past 17 years in which I did not ever own a smartphone. And by the way, the smartphones that you saw in the picture here, these are my wife's old smartphones and current smartphones. And then these are the various dumb phones that we have in the house. So the first thing that I have learned is that I have been able to stay focused, way more focused. And that in two areas. I have been able to stay on tasks, whatever I am trying to do, whether that's something that I'm trying to write on the computer, whether that's reading, whether that's just sketching something, putting something together, cooking, preparing, working in the house, whatever it is, I have been able to stay focused on that task. And similarly, I've been able to stay focused on people that I'm meeting with, and whether that is I'm meeting them on Zoom or I'm meeting them personally, there is no phone, there are no notifications, no to-do lists between me and that other person. I'm there, and yeah, that's it. If I'm bored, I'm bored. So what? The second thing, and this might be a little unusual because it is something that you might not imagine, I have had a better online experience because the way that I go online is with laptops, desktop computers, iPads, tablets, things with big screens. That's what I use to go online. And that means that the videos that I watch are bigger, in a sense, as they were meant to be looked at. And the pictures that I see they're bigger. They're full resolution, big, huge things. Same with websites. I have all of the tools and tricks of websites. I mean, I do know that experience of trying to look at a website on the phone and everything is in this big, huge, long scroll versus one in which most of the things are fairly visible within the actual screen itself. And then next, email, any type of communication that I have with people. Man, reading emails on a phone is so incredibly tiresome, just as much as typing them, or even just a very long text. It's very difficult. Whereas if I'm doing that stuff on a laptop or on a tablet, it's just so much easier. And then you actually have a keyboard there that you can write your responses. Responses come out 2 or 3 times faster. You're able to put more nuance into things. There's less room for miscommunication. Just the whole online experience is better with a bigger screen and with a keyboard. The third thing that I've learned, signified by a quote from Dallas Willard. Dallas Willard, in his book Hearing God, says that solitude is the cure for loneliness. I believe he says that there. He certainly says it in a lot of places, and he talks about something very similar there. Solitude is the cure for loneliness. And I think that a lot of people carry a smartphone around with them and use one because it acts, they believe, as a buffer against a loneliness, which is very possible in our world because we don't live in very often in communities which human beings used to live and seem to be an important part of just basic human well-being. And so there's this idea that phone can create for you that community, or at least push back the negative effects of loneliness. Now, I haven't found this to be the case, and I have met lots and lots of lonely people who have a smartphone and use that to try to stay in touch with people. And I know that there are abilities to do that with a smartphone and all that. But what people don't experience is just longer times of solitude. times in which you're at home or when you're out in which you're just by yourself. There aren't 10 people that you're chatting with who know where you are or what you're doing or who are in communication with you. There are times in your day in which you're by yourself on your own. Now, to increase that even more, you could have times in which you really are not even doing these tasks, and that's really what Dallas Willard is talking about. Dallas Willard is talking about times in which we are alone with God, alone by ourselves, and that really can be a very important cure for loneliness, because that's where we find out that we are never alone, that God is there with us, and we need those times. But if you always have your phone with you, then you will never discover those times. You'll never be able to discover that this indeed is a time when I have no people around me, but God is here. And therefore, you can take that God who is there with you in those lonely solitude times and take him into the times when you're with other people. Now, the fourth thing that I have learned about myself, about life in the 17 years without a phone, without a smartphone, is that I have been able to live quite well without advertisements. I see so few advertisements, and it is a little surprising how many advertisements can be put onto a phone like that. And of course, that's one of the big advantages of it. I mean, when you have only something like this, the best thing, you can get those sort of spam texts and you can get spam calls, but those can be blocked against pretty easily, or at least in the EU. Those are kind of under regulation. But with a smartphone, as all advertisers know, there are new possibilities, and my life can be lived. I'll have entire days in which I don't see any advertisements. I mean, unless I go outside and I see a billboard or something like that. And that is a really freeing way to live, because you're not constantly attracted to things that you probably just don't need anyway. Well, those are the four things that I have learned in 17 years of not having a smartphone, or learned or at least experienced. And I want to encourage you to join me in a digital cloister for 40 days. Lent is actually longer than 40 days because the Sundays don't count in the number of days. But 40 days starting next Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and just give up your smartphone. If you don't have one of these, or if you don't have an active number, get one so that you can be in touch with people, and just try to live 40 days without that thing, and then see how it goes. Maybe after you're done you say, well, I want it again, but I want to use it in a very specific way. I don't know. It's an experiment, and if you can't do it without it for those 40 days, well, that might tell you something about yourself as well. Something else that I want to do is next week, I want to start talking about Benedict's rule, the rule of St. Benedict. Where is it? Here it is, Rule of St. Benedict. I've got some ideas for some videos about this, and if you want to buy this and just kind of read it through with me, it is not very long, and this one here is only longer because it actually has some introduction notes in it. You can find it online. You don't even have to buy it. This is a perfectly fine copy. It's a image penguin. Just get a fine translation and read it with me. Now, what I would like to know is, what is the longest period of time that you have gone without your smartphone? What is the longest period of time? Is it just that 3 hours in which you couldn't find it, or what is it? It would be wonderful to sort of see what people are able to do or have done in the past, in advance of this idea of 40 days without smartness, the digital cloister. But hey, that's what we're doing here on the Sanctus Forum. Sign up for the Sanctus newsletter over at sanctus.institute, and you can get some behind the scenes things about what's happening, learn how to pray for us, and be more involved. Thanks. Bye.